Hello everyone, welcome back to D Squared Stories, an audio fiction podcast bringing you short serialized weekly stories. We are continuing on with our next chapter of Canaveral Academy for Challenged Youth. Without any further ado, let's get into a quick recap and then get started. Last time, Mr. Simon was scolded by the headmaster and given a 2-week deadline to find the killer. Judah was told that after his time at Canaveral Academy was up, he would be offered a position on the staff here, which seemed to give him mixed emotions. During career day, the lights went out in the cafeteria, and Mr. Simon went into full hysteria, claiming this was a trap to kill old Johnny. Peter overruled him and sent the maintenance man out to fix it. He returned revealing that there was an alarm clock rigged to the electric box that caused the outage. However, old Johnny was not the target. In the mayhem, no one noticed as Miss Andrea overdosed on the pain meds she had been siphoning from the students. Mr. Simon's deadline was shortened to 1 week. He and Miss Jamie accused Mary of rigging the alarm clock, based on knowing she had used one to wake the girls up earlier than their start time. Miss Jamie revealed that she had stolen an original prototype of the clock that Mary denied making. When they took her in for questioning, Peter arrived on scene to find Miss Jamie dead, with words and blood scrawled on her, and Mr. Simon wounded and restraining Mary. Chapter 5. Judgment Day. The night was calm and peaceful. The stormy weather had given to a cool fall breeze. October was fast approaching, and the owls were noisy as ever this night. Mary stared up at the tree line. She did her best to try to see if she could spot any in the dim glow of the full moon. She had read in her spare time at Canaveral that Pennsylvania had a handful of owls that stayed year-round, but there were also those who migrated from the area during the colder months, and some that drew south into the area. She could not recall which ones did, nor could she really identify owls, even if they were right in front of her. However, as she approached being in the cage for nearly 48 hours, she had to find something to do, lest she go completely insane. She still reeked of the mix of blood that she was covered in, though she had become almost accustomed to the smell that she hardly noticed. Old Johnny sprayed her down with a hose on Saturday, as a form of cleaning, but it truly did little except for make her uncomfortably damp for a few hours. She thought for the first time, as he stood an unnecessary distance back from her, that she saw fear in his eyes. She thought there was some part of him that truly believed she had done it. She wondered how many of the others suspected her. She wondered if any of them could believe that she had killed Miss Jamie, or if any could be convinced that it was a setup by Mr. Simon. After all, that is what they kept spending several hours rotating people in and out of the meeting room to discuss, even in those late hours. She jolted suddenly when she felt someone poke her on the shoulder. "It's just me," Judah said. "You shouldn't be here. You could get caught." "No one is monitoring either of the dorms right now. Mr. Johnny's focus is solely on the exits and rigging traps there." She sighed and just looked away from him. He just let out a low growl. "Come on, why are you just accepting this? I know there's no way you could have killed Miss Jamie. There has to be something that exonerates you. Let me help you. Headmaster will listen to me if I can give him something compelling. Mr. Simon's going to kill you." She turned to him with disinterest. He struggled not to gag as a breeze blew his way, carrying her stench of death with it. "What's the point, Judah?" she said. "Even if I slip through now, even if I pin it on Mr. Simon, what will change?" "He'll be gone and things will go back to normal again." He leaned close to the bars of the cage as he pleaded with her. She looked vacant for a moment. Then, suddenly, she punched him in the nose. He recoiled and fell backwards. When he opened his eyes, she was just glaring at him. "Judah, do you really think that anything that has happened to us here is normal? Do you not realize that going back to normal is not okay? Do you really think what's going on here is sustainable?" "Mary," he said, looking down, "some people need to be punished when they've done something wrong. I know you're not one of them, but you have to understand." "No, Judah, I don't," she said. "No one should be treated like this. No one should have to pay with their life because of their transgressions." Judah paused, tilting his head. "Their life? Mary, who are you talking about? I'm talking about making sure that you don't pay with your life. You only have 6 months left to go." She rolled onto her side and looked away from him. "Fine. Play dumb then." He sighed. He got up to start walking back to the dorm. Without turning back towards him, she said one last thing. "Next time you're in his office, take a good look at that axe for me." Judah paused, almost looking back at her, curious what she meant by that. He just continued onwards towards the dorm. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, the staff remained in a familiar gridlock. Mr. Simon slammed his fist on the table. "Come on, enough of this," he said. "Let's just put this girl to death at long last." "We've been telling you," Mr. Phillips said. "You haven't put together enough evidence that she's been the one doing it." "Evidence? She stabbed Miss Jamie and tried to write on her forehead in blood." "With only one witness," Mr. Bart said, "who has everything to gain by doing it himself." "Everything to gain? Miss Jamie was the only person here I got on with. I would never kill her." "Mr. Simon," Peter interjected, "it might help if you could locate the camera that produced the original photos of Mr. Jim. This has been your task since you arrived here. That camera is a smoking gun that seems to elude you." "The camera and all of its traces have been difficult to find, that is true. However, we also can't prove that she didn't smash it or bury it." "I'm also more interested in that bizarre second clock you found," Mr. Tom said. "It sounds unlikely that you would confiscate one clock, then she would immediately build another and use it in a way that would easily implicate herself. I fear you are too locked in on this girl and not other suspects." His eyes drifted to Mr. Bart. "Are you seriously still on this?" he asked. "For God's sake, man, what do I need to do to make you think I'm not a killer?" "Ahem." Sister Theresa sat in the corner of the room, knitting. She participated, for the first time in this discussion, just to object to the language used in the room. Mr. Bart's eyes at first flashed with rage, but after looking at the little old woman for a while, the anger subsided. "My apologies," he said. "I didn't kill anyone. We can all agree I wasn't in the room when Miss Jamie died. It would be convenient to think it was Mary, and we can all go on with our lives finally. But between Mr. Thad's death and Miss Andrea's death, there's a lot she would have had to be privy to in order to make that happen." "I agree," Mr. Matthias said. "Mr. Simon, I think you could be onto something here. I just would feel a lot better with more proof. And the longer we keep her in the cage, as long as the murders stop, the more comfortable I feel." Mr. Simon scowled. He looked desperate to say anything to try to get someone on his side, but for various different reasons, they did not buy Mary as the killer. Peter checked his watch for the time. He breathed out deeply and stood up from the table. "It's late," he said. "We should conclude for the night. Mr. Simon, keep looking for clues. If you're right, God will reveal the truth in time. I am sure of it." Mr. Simon bit his lip and nodded. The staff departed back to their quarters for the night, leaving old Johnny to continue to cover the patrol. As Peter departed, Sister Theresa followed closely behind. She tugged gently on his sleeve. He turned to face her. "Yes, what is it?" he asked. She looked at him with deep sadness in her eyes, almost on the verge of tears. She seemed to struggle to say what she wanted to say next. "Peter Stone," she said, voice shaky, "I don't think there's any other way out of this than a conviction for Miss Mary." He looked shocked to hear this. His mouth hung open to start to ask her if she was certain, but before he even did, she just looked at him with a serious expression, preempting the question with her reaction. Her face sunk. He looked to seriously consider this for a while. He looked down towards the ground, before finding the courage to bring himself back up to look at her face. "We will see what God has in store for us," he said, "and then we will work with what he gives us." The next morning was Sunday. The students assembled as usual for the morning mass. There was a priest from a town over who regularly came to say the mass. The students knew to all be on good behavior during this. The priest was aware of the conceit of Canaveral, being a disciplinary boarding school. He was aware that students might try to flee, but he was unaware of the scope of abuse that took place. Mary and her cage were covered with a tarp during the mass, and she was told to be quiet, and she complied. Following the mass, the students were sent back to their weekend chores, which included tidying the dorms, sweeping the classrooms, cleaning the bathrooms, and in this season, raking the leaves. Typically, the student officers oversaw some of the chores in their own dorms. Seeing that they were down all female staff at this point, and Mary was indisposed, Peter made the decision to task Judah with overseeing the girls as they swept the cafeteria and cleaned its bathrooms. He sat awkwardly at one of the tables while he watched them. Rachel and Rebecca, barely out of earshot in the bathroom, occasionally took looks back at him. "I don't like this," Rebecca said. "I feel like he's gawking at us. You know why he was originally put here, right?" Rachel nodded. "I do. I don't think he's a threat, though. Not to us, anyhow. Mary would always vouch for him, but I don't know. He just gives me the creeps. He's such a teacher's pet, and here that's such an extra weird thing to be. Wait, what do you mean by not to us? Rachel shrugged. I don't know. Isn't it weird that literally no one seems to suspect him as the killer? Ha, that's insane, Rebecca said, too loudly, drawing Judah's attention. She blushed and went down to a whisper. Him? He loves it here. I think he believes in the mission of this place more than some of the teachers do. That's what I mean, she said. Every teacher who has been killed has been engaging in sinful or otherwise destructive behavior to the school. Rebecca shook her head. There's no way. He couldn't possibly. He doesn't have it in him. Right? She snuck one last glance back at him. He had stopped looking at them or the other girls for a while. He just started quietly whistling to himself and looking up at the ceiling, awkwardly sitting like he had no idea what else to do. Over in the boys' dorm, Peter oversaw Javier and Francis as they took off the sheets from the bed for washing. Once they had filled up a large enough basket, Javier went to carry it out to be washed. Francis eyed the headmaster with disdain as he continued to pull sheets off the beds and pillows. Peter did not take his eyes off him for a moment, knowing that Francis would take any opportunity given to him to take revenge by bludgeoning him. Despite this watchful eye, internally, Peter was struggling to stay focused, his mind shifting to Mary and Mr. Simon. Between the two of them, someone had to have killed Miss Jamie. If it was Mr. Simon, which he was inclined to believe, it would mean the original killer was still at large at the school. Mary, since the first murder where her whereabouts were unaccounted for, made a compelling suspect. If the perpetrator was a student, she was uniquely positioned to get access she needed for the two subsequent murders. However, one thought lingered in the back of his mind. It was that she was one of two students for which every single one of those details held true. He turned his head to the side. For just a moment, he continued listening carefully. The creaky floorboards would let him know if Francis began to approach. Peter looked at the drawer next to Judah's bunk bed. He felt a slight tremble in his arms as he slowly approached it. He grabbed the drawer and opened it slowly. He felt for the first time in years a sharp phantom pain in his no longer existent leg as he saw a cardboard box tucked away in the corner of it. He slowly pulled the box free. It was heavy, large enough, and heavy enough to have a camera tucked away in it. Peter set the box down on the drawer and felt himself shaking as he opened it. He could hardly breathe as he pulled the box open, and to his surprise, he found a series of rocks in it. He dug his hands through the rocks and felt something underneath. He pulled a sock from the bottom. It was a long stocking, one typical of the girl's uniform. He noticed the stitchwork on it, as if it had been torn and needed to be patched up. Based on the handiwork, it would be reasonable to guess that it would be Mary's. He pulled it closer to inspect it, when he slightly pushed it away after noticing a smell to it, as if regularly worn and not washed. Peter's face crumpled with disappointment and slight disgust. Suddenly, he turned his attention to Francis, who he had realized he had not heard move in a few moments. Francis held a pillowcase in his hand and was staring at what Peter held in his hand with mild revulsion. Francis had a perturbed look on his face as he just shook his head. Peter simply put the sock back into the box and placed it back into the drawer, closing it. He sighed and turned to Francis. "Let us never discuss what was discovered here," he said. "Agreed," Francis replied. Francis went back to pulling the sheets and putting them into the next basket. Peter shook his head, thinking about what he had just uncovered. Desperate to take his mind off his future staff members' peculiarities, he tried to strike a conversation with the student who despised him the most. "Your 18th birthday is only about 2 months away," he said. "You must be very excited." Francis did not even look at him as he said this. He seemed to weigh the costs of not responding. After a while, without even stopping for a moment from his task, he answered. "I suppose so," he said. "I've missed my family, even if they never write to me. I'm looking forward to seeing them again." Peter nodded. Francis's family wrote to him more than any other student. He intercepted every last one of them, keeping them from reaching him. They wrote of remorse for sending him away somewhere they could not see him. They wrote of attempting to appeal the judge's decision to see if there was a way to keep him neither at Canaveral nor juvenile prison. Peter, who had developed into a master of forging penmanship, wrote back to them, urging that it was not a problem. He wrote that he was being well taken care of here, treated well. Francis felt the scar of an old wound left on his face slightly tingle again as the headmaster recalled this. "I just hope that we have done enough to mold you into a better person. I hope we have righted your path and secured you a place in heaven." Francis chuckled. Well, you did much more for me here than Juvie would have ever done. I can say that much. Peter almost found a rare smile come to his face. This was uncharacteristic of Francis, to be this close to earnest and not bitter. For a moment, Francis paused his chore and stared up intensely at Peter. He breathed in deeply. You know Mary could have never done this, he said. Why are you even entertaining this? Peter shook his head. Nothing is impossible, Master Francis. God's will can make even the most inexplicable things happen. He sighed. If you say so. The week came and went. The students felt a wave of reprieve as Mr. Simon was too intently searching for evidence to convict Mary to spend the time doling out massive punishments. Peter took over Miss Jamie's responsibilities managing the female dorm. In spite of their lack of leadership, Rebecca managed to continue rallying them without issue. Mary stayed strong and resilient through her time in the cage, though each day that went by without another murder caused her support among the staff to wane. Things came to a head one day during a nighttime staff meeting. Mr. Simon had yet to show up, so they had been discussing usual business, but he came bursting through the door. I did it, he said proudly. He slammed a vial on the desk. Everyone looked on in confusion. It's arsenic, the poison used to kill Mr. Thad. I found it in a lockbox in the science lab. You found a chemical in the science lab, Mr. Tom said. And this convicts Mary how? He pulled up a piece of a broken bobby pin. This was found right at the scene of the crime. She used it to pick the lock of the lockbox to get the poison. Mr. Bart put his palm to his face. Just keep going in circles. Everything you say was because of Mary could have easily been because of Miss Jamie. Now she's dead, and we can't prove anything. Mr. Phillips spoke. I concur. You're just dead set on trying to put any amount of evidence on her at this point, because if it's not her, you have a problem. Enough, Peter said. The room went silent. All eyes turned to him as he continued. You're all letting your disdain for Mr. Simon cloud your judgment. The alarm clock, the lockpick, her absence during the first murder, her contempt for Miss Jamie. While all of it may be circumstantial, at a certain point, there's too much evidence to be ignored. Mr. Simon rubbed his hands maniacally. Finally, Pete, I'm glad you see it my way. When we kill this girl and the murders cease, you'll know I was right. The remaining staff looked on in confusion as Mr. Simon eagerly clasped his hands together. Mr. Matthias stammered for a moment, trying to come up with the words to say. Mr. Bart interrupted him. What's the point? He asked. Why are we all acting like this is some line we'll never cross? Our souls are all damned for participating in this. We all understand what happens here. If we want to go out of bounds just this once, what's the difference? The headmaster solemnly nodded, as if to echo this was his exact sentiment. The group slowly dispersed. They each went back to their respective dorms. Peter was walking quietly and solemnly with Sister Theresa. For a moment, she paused to look up at the full moon. He patiently waited a couple of steps ahead of her. She did not move to catch up with him. Instead, she just looked at him. She looked wistful. Her gentle smile looked like it took great effort to keep on her face. Her dark brown hair waved gently in the nighttime breeze. She, in a low voice that barely reached over the night air between them, said, I think it's time for me to leave Canaveral. Peter frowned almost instantly. He looked like he had no idea why she was telling him this. He almost lashed out, a reflexive urge just to vent his anger all at once nearly overtaking him. Then, he took a deep breath. He looked at her. He saw eyes that could hardly bear to look at him. He had only saw this expression on her face one other time, and he understood it well. He nodded his head. So be it, he said. I will arrange for your transportation. Know that you will be dearly missed here. She nodded. Thank you for being so accommodating. No, thank you, he said. The next day, assembly occurred as usual, though there was a downcast energy over the student body. It was too much so to be explained away by the dreary fall weather that had overtaken the campus. No, Peter could tell by the looks on their faces, especially Judah's, that the news had somehow slipped from the faculty. He did his best to pay it no mind as he went through daily prayer and ushered the students to their next class. They all seemed hesitant to move along. Peter had expected this. As soon as old Johnny showed his face following his nightly patrol, clearly decked out with gear to catch any student, they moved along. The staff all moved along as well, until all that were left were Peter, Mr. Simon, Judah, and the caged Mary. Mr. Simon excitedly opened the cage and put Mary in handcuffs as he ushered her along to the headmaster's office. Judah and Peter slowly trailed behind, Judah just whispering to be barely audible. "Headmaster, please, you cannot be serious," he said.
"Calm, Judah. Now is no time for objections."
"Headmaster," he said, "you know Mary did not kill anyone. You know killing her will not stop the violence. Why are you doing this?"
"Calm, Judah. Trust in God's will."
"Am I not a vessel for God's will? Do you not hear my pleas? Why do you play the part of Pilate and yield to the calls to let Barabbas run free and let the innocent die for the sinners?" This seemed to particularly strike a nerve with the headmaster, who grabbed Judah's shoulder with enough force to momentarily inflict serious pain. Judah yelped quietly.
"Silence, Judah," he said. "Someday, when you join the staff, you will be forced to make difficult decisions. Others will not understand them. I pray that we all find grace from others when we do things they do not understand."
Judah bit his lip and shook his head. He continued towards the office. Mr. Simon was about to go through the door and up the stairs when Peter called out to him.
"Slow yourself, Mr. Simon," he said. "You move too zealously."
"I'm just excited to be rid of the murderer, to have accomplished what I came here for. Every moment that I do not draw this girl's blood is agony to me." Peter's eyes widened.
"Mr. Simon, there appears to be a misunderstanding."
In the threshold between outside and the building, Mr. Simon immediately scowled and let out a deep groan. "We had come to an agreement. The girl is to die." Peter finally caught up with him. He grabbed Mary by the arm and pulled her away from him and up the stairs. He did not even for a moment turn back, casting his face away from Judah and Mr. Simon and waving his hand as a gesture for them to stay there.
"No, you still misunderstand," he said. "I am the headmaster of Canaveral Academy. If any student's blood is to be spilled in this school, it should be by my hands. I would consider it wise for you to never forget that again, Mr. Simon."
Mr. Simon squinted as Peter continued to lead Mary up the stairs and into his office. Judah stood down next to him at the bottom of the stairs. The two of them eyed each other cautiously. Peter got to the top of the stairs and brought Mary into his office. He pulled out something from his closet. He unfolded what appeared to be a portable kneeler and set it before her. He pushed her onto her knees in front of the crucifix.
"A custom I do with all students who leave Canaveral is to give them an opportunity to pray to God for forgiveness, in hopes that He will accept them with open arms when they pass from this world. While this is certainly a far different circumstance from graduation, I would like to give you the same opportunity."
Mary let out a gentle sigh. She bowed her head and did as he said, prayed quietly. In these final moments, she prayed for her parents. She prayed for Dinesh. She prayed for the staff who had abused her, and she prayed for the person who had wronged her the most. She prayed for Judah, too. In the whiplash that was Mary's life, her certainty in the existence of God had only ever slightly wavered. More so, what wavered was her belief in His love for her and all His creations. In these final moments, though, all she could do was have faith. So she did. There was a clicking sound from the wall, followed by another one. Peter exerted great effort in pulling something down from it. Mary, without even opening her eyes from prayer, simply spoke. "Nice axe." Peter paused. He looked back at her.
"I find it unsurprising that you know what this axe has done before."
Peter walked over with the axe that drew Jean's blood in his hands. He walked over with shaking hands that he could not bring to calm, a sadness in his expression that he kept as silent as he could manage. Mary tried to do the same, only gently trembling with slight tears running down her face as she spent her last moments having hope and faith that this was not truly the end. Down the stairs, Judah and Mr. Simon were jolted suddenly by what sounded undeniably like a sharp object slicing through flesh. Judah winced, grabbing the railing for support and nearly passing out instantly from the squelching noise. Mr. Simon's eyes widened, a look of surprise buried deep in an expression of skepticism. That skepticism washed away, though, as he heard the axe swing down again, and again, and again. Peter's voice cried out in agony, as if it was going through his body, as he thrust the object over and over again through the victim. Throughout the course of several after several swings, only towards the end did one sharp, high-pitched scream come out during the barrage. It was a weak cry. It was as if the person crying out was unconscious, and the noise was an involuntary action taken by their body alone. After the last few swings, all that could be heard was the heavy sounds of Peter heaving over top of the body. Mr. Simon bolted up the stairs. He forced the door open and barged in. He started cackling immediately. It was almost as if he did not believe what he was seeing, as if he expected to come up and see an embarrassed Peter who had pretended to slice through Mary. Much to his wicked delight, though, he saw a body hacked beyond recognition. Blood stained nearly everything in his office, but especially the kneeler and the floor. Mr. Simon took a close look at it, and once he saw the wavy dark hair that he knew to be Mary's, he let out a sinister chuckle and slapped Peter on the shoulder. "I'll be honest with you, Pete. I thought you had some last-minute antics planned. You seem to go along with this too easy. It does my heart good to see that I was wrong. Man, you really let this girl have it. She deserved it, after all. Nasty Harpy killed 4 good-hearted people. Good work, Pete. I'm going to get myself set up in Mr. Jim's old bunkin' office, if that's all right with you." As soon as he was in, he was out. He nearly knocked Judah down the steps as he went down. The student officer entered the room and mustered everything he could not to puke at the sight of what he saw. He cried into his hands before looking at the headmaster with betrayal and shock. He stared at the axe in his hand, which mere days ago Mary had told him to pay attention to. For what felt like minutes to both of them, he struggled to come up with the words, but after some time, he just turned away and went down the stairs. Peter stood in the room, silently, a wistful look in his eye. Tears gently began to stream down his face. During the next weeks at Canaveral, the atmosphere of the campus was complemented by the weather. The leaves were turning brown, and a cold snap took the campus, early as often happened in October. Rebecca had been promoted to student officer. The girls still moved mostly as a cohesive unit, even without their former leader. However, with Peter simply ringing a bell from the outside to signal the start of their ready period, there was much less pressure to have everything perfectly in order, as when Miss Jamie was still alive. The boys felt a sense of dread too. Every day that ticked by without another murder gave them a sense of helplessness. Judah as well seemed less energetic about all aspects of life. Mr. Simon had relented slightly in his abuse. The downcast faces of all the students was enough for him right now to satiate his sadistic tendencies. The students were all assembled on this cold fall morning, and Peter was at the end of his prayers and ready to dismiss them after announcements.
"Just one announcement today," he said. "Happy 18th birthday to Mr. Javier. He will be following me to my office for his graduation. It is always an exciting day to send someone off from Canaveral."
The boys lukewarmly patted him on the back in celebration. They were dismissed from their assembly and sent to their first classes. Judah opted to go to his class this morning, rather than the gym. Javier followed Peter towards his office, but not before Mr. Simon could grab Peter at the doorway. Javier stopped and turned around.
"Please proceed, Mr. Javier,"
he said to him. Javier continued up the stairs. Mr. Simon looked on eagerly. "Did you have a chance to review that resume I gave you of my correctional officer, buddy?" he asked. "He's a real good fit. I know things seem in order as of right now, but once that fades, this guy will keep them in line at all costs. He's one of us, old friend." Peter shook his head.
"I am in need of 2 female members of staff, Mr. Simon. I have an adequate amount of men here, with you taking Mr. Thad's place."
Mr. Simon stomped his foot. "That's not true. You lost Mr. Thad and Mr. Jim. You need to make up the other one."
"Judah turns 18 next month, and when he does, he will join Canaveral as a full-time instructor."
Mr. Simon almost stumbled a little on hearing this. His body seemed to shake slightly. Peter raised his eyebrow, watching his inexplicable reaction to this news. Mr. Simon recomposed himself, cleared his throat, and spoke again. "Sorry," he said. "I did know the boy turns 18 next month. I had just thought we would send him off like every other student. You're telling me he gets to stay? That seems a little counterintuitive to our mission, don't you think?" Peter shook his head again.
"Nonsense. I think this is the ultimate conclusion of our mission. It is disappointing to me that it has taken so long to get a student who I felt comfortable raising to this post."
Mr. Simon nodded. "I see. Very well. Well, my position here is clear. I think the correctional officer would serve much better than the boy. I pray that you will change your mind." He departed from him abruptly. Peter found his conduct strange, and he was surprised that his old combative friend had let this go without a fight. Peter bit his lip. Was Mr. Simon going to find a way to aggressively persuade Judah from taking the post? It was not beyond him. He could not give this any additional thought, though, for the time being. He went up the stairs and to his office, where Javier was waiting for him. The headmaster pulled out the kneeler from his closet, nearly fully spotless from the blood spilled on it not that long ago. He gestured to Javier.
"Please, kneel and close your eyes for prayer," he said. "Our rite of graduation involves a deep, prayerful moment before we can send you off from Canaveral."
Javier nodded and knelt down in front of him. He closed his eyes as instructed.
"All our efforts here at Canaveral are to prepare young men and women who have fallen off the path of God's will, to redirect them, so that when they leave here, they leave with the best chance of making it to heaven."
Peter stepped towards the back wall of his office. Javier kept praying.
"There is no greater calling in life to reform students and take the lost sheep who has fallen away from the shepherd, and then, after time, get to return them to him."
There was a clicking sound by the wall. Javier's eyes remained closed.
"So, Mr. Javier Martinez, you were once lost, but now you are found. Pray with thanksgiving to God that his divine will drew you back towards him, after all, through the hands of his disciple."
Peter quickly stepped back towards Javier. The young man, startled by this, opened his eyes, and then his mouth to scream.
"Go forth! Return to God's arms if that is his will!"
The axe nearly cut 3/4 of the way through Javier's neck. Peter heaved. He drew the axe back, taking great might to unstick it from his neck. He swung it back again into him, finishing the job. Peter's heart raced as Javier's head rolled across the floor, his blood spurting into the office. Peter sighed deeply. He smiled gently. He rested his axe on the kneeler. With his blood-stained hands, he folded them. With his blood-splattered face, he turned it to the crucifix. He prayed. He thanked God for letting him play this part in the plan set forth by his providence. Thank you so much for listening to this chapter of Canaveral Academy for Challenged Youth. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast, give it a like on YouTube, or share with someone else who you think might also enjoy. You can stay up to date with Canaveral Academy for Challenged Youth by following us on social media. That will be D Squared Stories on just about any of the major platforms. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to have you listen again next week.